Most men think women want a nice, stable guy. Safe, predictable, reliable. But here's the truth, she doesn't crave predictability. She craves the opposite. She gets addicted to the man who keeps her guessing, who shows strength one moment and warmth the next. That's the kind of man she can't stop thinking about. Now let's get real. If you've ever been in a relationship where you gave her consistency, where you were always available, always agreeable, always the same, you probably noticed something painful. She started to pull back. She lost interest. She looked elsewhere for excitement. And you were left wondering, what did I do wrong? You weren't bad. You were just predictable. And predictable is the kiss of death. Women, especially women who've lived, loved, and lost, are moved by psychology more than logic. They're drawn to men who know how to balance presence with mystery, kindness with fire, boundaries with play. They want to feel a storm, not a routine. That's where Stoicism enters. Stoicism doesn't tell you to be cold or manipulative. It teaches you to be centered, to master yourself, so that you can choose when to be calm, when to be wild, and when to reveal vulnerability without losing power. It's not about playing games. It's about living with intention and letting her feel it. In this video, we're breaking down 10 female vulnerabilities every man must master so you can stop chasing and start leading. Let's get into it. Number 1. She's addicted to the unpredictable. Every man has been told that women want stability. And in some ways it's true. She wants to know you're not reckless with her heart or her safety. But here's the paradox most men miss. While she craves stability, she gets hooked on unpredictability. Not chaos, not immaturity, but the kind of unpredictability that makes her feel alive. Think about it. When every day looks the same, when every word you say is predictable, when your behavior never shifts, you turn into background noise. And women, especially women in midlife who've seen it all, don't fall for background noise. They fall for energy that surprises them. Take Richard, 56, a financial advisor who'd been dating Margaret, 52, a school administrator. Richard thought he was doing everything right, calling at the same time every night, taking her to the same restaurant every Friday, giving her the same compliments. At first, Margaret appreciated the effort, but soon she grew restless. It just felt like a script, she admitted, like he was repeating lines instead of living with me. One evening, Richard broke pattern. Instead of their usual dinner spot, he picked her up, drove out of town, and surprised her with tickets to a jazz show. No warning, no routine. And she lit up. That night changed everything because he stopped being predictable and started being magnetic. Here's the psychology behind it. The female brain is wired for contrast. It pays attention when things shift. The Stoics understood this too. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Observe always that everything is the result of change, and accustom yourself to think that nature loves nothing so much as to change existing forms and to make new ones like them." What does that mean here? It means if you never change, you're resisting nature itself, and she feels it as boredom. Unpredictability doesn't mean flakiness. It doesn't mean ghosting her for 3 days or playing games. That kind of immaturity pushes women away. What she wants is for you to show different sides of yourself. The calm man who suddenly tells a daring joke. The thoughtful man who, out of nowhere, decides to dance in the kitchen. The stoic man who, instead of keeping every emotion locked up, lets a playful grin break through at the right moment. Think about how attraction works in practice. If she knows exactly what you'll say, exactly what you'll do, exactly when you'll call, there's no edge. But if she feels she can't quite pin you down, not in a toxic way, but in a vibrant way, her mind keeps circling back. What will he do next? What's he going to surprise me with? That loop is what makes her crave you. And here's the beauty of it. Unpredictability isn't about money or status. It's about intention. It's about deciding not to live like a script. It's about being alive in your choices, Margaret didn't fall for Richard because of the jazz tickets. She fell because in that moment, he showed he was bigger than a routine. He showed her he could lead, surprise, and still make her feel safe. That's the kind of contradiction women get addicted to. So, if you've been guilty of being too consistent, ask yourself, when's the last time you broke the pattern? When's the last time you caught her off guard in a way that made her smile instead of doubt you? Because in the end, she's not addicted to routine. She's addicted to the man who knows how to bend it. If you've ever felt a woman light up when you shifted the script, drop this in the comments. I sparked surprise. And here's what most men don't realize. Once you master unpredictability, there's another layer she's secretly vulnerable to. Not about you, but about how other women suddenly shape her behavior. And that's where things get very interesting. Number 2. Rival women trigger her fire. Here's something most men underestimate. A woman doesn't just respond to you. She responds to the presence of other women around you. Rivalry, even subtle, has a way of waking up her competitive fire. It's not always conscious. Often, it's instinct. Think about it. If you talk about your life in a way that makes her feel like she's the only one who's ever been interested in you, she relaxes. She may even get comfortable. But comfort isn't what creates desire. What sparks desire is the quiet reminder that she's not the only option, that other women exist, that she could lose you if she doesn't stay engaged. Now, don't twist this into childish game playing. We're not talking about bragging about your past, dropping names, or trying to make her jealous with obvious moves. That's immature and almost always backfires. What works is subtle contrast. Mentioning that a colleague once gave you unexpected praise. Talking about an experience where a woman admired a quality in you that has nothing to do with looks. It's not about showing her you're taken. It's about reminding her you're valued. The female mind responds to competition. It sharpens her attention. It pulls her out of autopilot. The thought that another woman might want what she has or what she's close to having instantly makes you more desirable. That's not manipulation. That's human psychology. Scarcity increases value. It always has and always will. The Stoics understood this in their own way. Seneca once said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." Think about how that applies here. When a woman feels time slipping, when she feels that her chance with you could be wasted if she doesn't act, she takes things more seriously. She invests more. She doesn't delay. Rivalry compresses time. It makes her realize she cannot waste the opportunity in front of her. Men who try too hard to make themselves the only focus often lose the spark. They smother the relationship. They hand over all their energy without reminding her that other people recognize their worth. And when that happens, she stops competing, she stops chasing, she stops caring. But the man who naturally signals that he's admired, noticed, valued by others, without showing off flips a switch in her. Suddenly she's sharper, more affectionate, more invested. She wants to secure what others might want. This is why you'll often see a woman who seemed lukewarm suddenly light up when another woman pays attention to you. It's not that she didn't care before. It's that her fire needed a spark. It's important here to balance confidence with composure. You don't flaunt other women. You don't rub it in her face. That destroys trust. Instead, you live a life that naturally involves admiration, attention, respect. And when she notices, because she always will, her desire sharpens. Because in her mind, the question becomes, am I enough to keep his attention? And that question is exactly what keeps her engaged. So next time you catch her reacting a little differently after another woman smiles at you or compliments you, understand what's happening. It's not insecurity, it's instinct. It's her fire being triggered. And it can work in your favor if you handle it with calm. If you've ever seen a woman suddenly shift her energy when she realized others were interested in you, drop this in the comments. I've sparked fire. And here's the twist. Once her fire is lit, she doesn't just want to claim you, She wants to prove herself to you, and that's when the way you respond with calm or with neediness makes all the difference. Number 3. One sharp critique beats endless praise. Most men think the key to winning a woman's heart is constant validation. Tell her she's beautiful. Tell her she's amazing. Repeat it until she finally believes it. But here's the truth. Endless praise quickly becomes background noise, and when something turns into background noise, she stops hearing it. What actually captures her attention is the rare moment when you challenge her, not in a cruel way, not to tear her down, but with a sharp critique that makes her think, he sees me, and he's not afraid to be honest. Let's ground this with a real situation. Mark, 48, works in construction management. He started dating Diane, 45, a nurse who'd been divorced for 3 years. From the start, Mark showered her with compliments. He told her every detail of her appearance was perfect. At first, Diane loved it, but after a few weeks, it began to feel shallow. "It's like he couldn't see me clearly," she later said. "I wanted to know if he actually noticed me, or if he just wanted to keep me happy." One night over dinner, Mark finally broke the cycle. Diane was telling a story about work, venting about a younger colleague she thought was lazy. Instead of nodding along, Mark looked at her and said, "I think you're being a little harsh. You know you're a leader, right? And leaders don't just criticize, they guide." She froze for a moment. Then she smiled. That single critique carried more weight than all the compliments combined, because it was real. It showed backbone. It proved he wasn't afraid to risk her reaction. And most importantly, it made her respect him. Here's why this works. A woman doesn't want a man who only reflects her back to herself. She wants a man who sharpens her, who challenges her to be better. If all you do is agree, she feels flattered but not inspired. But if you can offer a critique with respect, not to hurt, but to guide, she feels both seen and led. The Stoics captured this spirit perfectly. Epictetus said, "Only the educated are free." True freedom doesn't come from hearing what you want all the time. It comes from being challenged in ways that force growth. When you deliver that kind of challenge, you stop being just another man giving empty flattery. You become the man who elevates her. Now, let's be clear. A sharp critique isn't about nitpicking her outfit or mocking her choices. That destroys trust. The point is to choose moments where your honesty helps her rise. Like when she doubts herself and you call out the strength she's ignoring, or when she complains about something small and you remind her of the bigger picture. Endless praise makes you blend in with every other man she's ever known. Strategic critique makes you stand out as the one who actually sees her. Diane later told Mark, "That night, I knew you weren't just trying to please me. You were willing to hold up a mirror I didn't want to see. And that's when I trusted you." That's the hidden power here. She doesn't just remember what you said, she remembers how you made her feel. Respected, guided, and stretched beyond her comfort zone. So ask yourself, are you the man who only praises, or the man who can praise and challenge? Because it's the latter who sticks in her mind. If you've ever noticed how one honest word shifted the whole dynamic, drop this in the comments. I speak truth. And here's the setup. Once you've shown her you're not afraid to challenge her, you can go even deeper, because the next layer isn't about what you say directly to her. It's about the subtle comparisons that get under her skin, even when you don't aim them at her. Number 4. Comparison plants the seed of desire. Here's something most men overlook. Women compare. Constantly. Not always out loud, not always consciously, but it happens in the background. She compares herself to other women. She compares her life to her friends. And most importantly, she compares what she gives to you against what she could be giving. That comparison is where desire begins. Think about how attraction actually works. If you only ever compliment her, she feels good, but she also feels safe. Too safe. But when you point out a quality in someone else not directly aimed at her, but simply observed, she takes note. Suddenly she's measuring herself against that quality. Suddenly she wants to rise, to match, to stand out. This is the hidden psychology behind subtle comparison. It doesn't take much. You might casually mention that a coworker has an incredible work ethic, or you might admire how someone handled a stressful situation with calm. You're not saying she's lacking, you're just highlighting what you notice in others. And her mind fills the gap. Am I showing him that too? Does he see that in me? Now, this isn't about manipulation. It's about reality. Men who only give attention to one woman risk being taken for granted. But men who notice qualities in the world around them remind her that you're always observing, always discerning, always holding standards. That presence makes her want to rise above the crowd. The Stoics understood this through their reflections on virtue. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If someone can show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change, for I seek the truth." That's the mindset comparison sparks. It's not about tearing down. It's about awakening the desire to grow, to adjust, to show up in a better way. Comparison works best when it's indirect, not when you say, "Why aren't you like her?" That kills connection. But when you highlight the excellence you see in others without pressure, it plants a seed. She begins to water it herself. She thinks about how she wants to be seen by you, how she wants to be remembered by you, how she wants to stand out from every other woman in your orbit. And here's the paradox. She may never admit this. She may act unbothered, but her behavior will shift. She'll dress a little sharper. She'll lean in closer. She'll take more initiative. Because comparison quietly stirs her competitive nature. It's not cruelty. It's not manipulation. It's human instinct. When someone knows there are other standards out there, they step up. When they think they're the only one in your world, they relax. And with that relaxation, desire fades. The man who understands this doesn't abuse it. He doesn't weaponize comparison. He uses it sparingly, with precision, because he knows it works not by force, but by suggestion. A single remark about excellence elsewhere lingers longer than 100 empty compliments. If you've ever noticed how a subtle shift in your words made her sharpen her attention, drop this in the comments. I raise standards. And if you're ready to sharpen your own standards as a man, here's your chance. Join as a member today. Inside the membership, you'll get access to deeper lessons on Stoic psychology, masculine presence, and the hidden dynamics of attraction that most men never learn. If you want to move beyond surface-level advice and start mastering the inner game that changes everything, membership is the next step. Because here's the truth. Comparison doesn't just plant the seed of desire in her, it also plants the seed of growth in you. And the man who grows, who challenges himself, who lives with standards that others can feel, he's the man she never forgets. Number 5. Vulnerability turns into her obsession. Most men think vulnerability means weakness. They've been told all their lives, don't cry, don't admit fear, don't let anyone see behind the mask. But when it comes to women, especially women who've lived long enough to know what's real, the truth is almost the opposite. Vulnerability, handled the right way, doesn't lower your value, it multiplies it. It can even become the very thing she obsesses over. Let's take Michael, 52, a successful contractor who started dating Claire, 50, a marketing executive. Michael had built his whole identity around being strong, reliable, always in control. For the first few weeks of dating, Claire liked him, but she kept him at arm's length. She said he was polished, almost too polished. One evening, over dinner, Michael shared something he usually kept hidden. He admitted that after his divorce 5 years earlier, he had gone through a rough season of doubt, questioning whether he was still worthy of love. He didn't say it with self-pity. He said it calmly, with quiet strength, showing he had worked through it. Claire leaned in, touched his hand, and whispered, "That's the most real thing you've said." From that night on, she saw him differently. The obsession started not with his confidence, but with his humanity. That's the paradox. When you reveal a scar, not a wound, but a scar you've lived through, you don't lose power. You gain it. She realizes you're not pretending, you're not hiding. You're a man who's been tested, who's still standing. And that draws her in more deeply than any surface-level charm ever could. Women in their 40s and 50s, especially, don't want a cardboard cutout of perfection. They've dated those men, and it always falls flat. What they crave is depth. They want to know you can carry them, but also that you've carried weight yourself. Vulnerability is proof. But here's the key. Timing and intention matter. If you dump your pain on her too soon, it feels like neediness. If you confess weakness without balance, it feels like burden. But if you reveal vulnerability after showing strength, if you let her see your cracks once she's already felt your foundation, it flips a switch in her. She starts to obsess, not because she pities you, but because she feels uniquely connected to the part of you no one else sees. The Stoics understood this paradox as well. Seneca wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more in imagination than in reality." When you share the struggles you've overcome, you're not confessing weakness, you're showing mastery over fear. You're showing her you've fought your inner battles and walked through them with dignity. That's not weakness, that's strength in its purest form. Claire later told Michael, "It wasn't your confidence that hooked me, it was the fact that you trusted me enough to show me what was behind it." That's what most men miss. They think women only want the armor. In reality, it's the glimpse beneath the armor that makes her heart race. So if you've been hiding every scar, thinking that makes you stronger, it may be time to rethink. A man who can balance power with openness is unforgettable. He's not a puzzle she can solve and discard. He's a story she keeps reading over and over because it feels alive. If you've ever seen a woman lean closer when you revealed something real, drop this in the comments. I show truth. And here's where it gets deeper. Once vulnerability draws her in, the next factor that either keeps her hooked or pushes her away isn't about what you reveal. It's about how you set the standards she has to rise to. And that's a whole different fire. Number 6. Playful spontaneity drives her wild. There's a reason why so many men get labeled as boring after a few months of dating. It's not because they're bad people, or even because they lack confidence. It's because they forget the simple truth. Routine kills excitement. Predictability might feel safe, but to her, it feels lifeless. What wakes her up, what makes her pulse quicken, is spontaneity, especially when it comes from a man who already carries strength and calm. Now, don't confuse spontaneity with chaos. Women aren't looking for a man who can't plan, who constantly changes his mind, or who leaves her stranded. That doesn't drive her wild. That makes her anxious. What she wants is the man who knows when to break his own rhythm, the man who can switch gears without warning, who can introduce playfulness into the ordinary and turn the everyday into something unforgettable. It's the difference between saying, "Let's go out Friday at 7," and saying, "Be ready in an hour, I've got a surprise." It's the difference between another dinner date at the same place and suddenly deciding to go listen to live music in the middle of the week. These little ruptures of routine electrify her. They remind her that life with you won't turn into background noise. The psychology here is simple. Spontaneity creates anticipation. It signals that you're alive, engaged, curious about more than just the same cycle. And because she never fully knows what's coming next, she stays engaged. Her mind keeps running the loop. What's he going to do next? That question is addictive. The Stoics, interestingly enough, weren't opposed to this. They warned against being slaves to impulse, but they also embraced the unpredictability of life. Epictetus taught, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Apply that here. It's not spontaneity that disturbs her, it's the kind of spontaneity you choose. When it's rooted in presence, when it's playful rather than reckless, it becomes irresistible. Most men miss this because they think being steady means being boring. But the most attractive men are steady at the core and playful at the edges. They know when to be consistent and when to throw in a curveball. That balance is what makes her feel both safe and thrilled, the ultimate combination. Here's the kicker. Playful spontaneity doesn't even have to be grand. It can be as simple as sending her a message during the day that says, "Step outside, I'm here," or turning an ordinary night into a drive with no destination, just music and conversation. These moments stick because they're unscripted. She can't predict them, so she remembers them. And here's why this matters even more with women in their 40s and 50s. By this stage, many of them have lived through routines that drained them. Long marriages, predictable partners, cycles of work and home. They don't need another man who plays it safe. They crave the man who reminds them that life still holds spark, adventure, laughter, and play. Playfulness is a kind of dominance too. It shows you're not trapped by rules or expectations. You can break your own rhythm without losing control. That's what keeps her fascinated. So ask yourself, when was the last time you broke the script? When was the last time you took her somewhere new, said something unexpected, made her laugh at a moment she thought would be serious? If you can't remember, you might be slipping into the very pattern that dulls attraction. If you've ever noticed how her eyes lit up the moment you did something unplanned, drop this in the comments. I stay playful. And here's the part most men don't realize. Once she feels your spontaneity, once she sees you're not bound by routine, the next thing she'll test is whether your standards are real or just talk. And that's where desire takes on a whole new shape. Number 7. Standards make her chase, not retreat. Most men believe that setting standards will push women away. They think if they draw lines, speak boundaries, or actually enforce what they will and won't tolerate, she'll walk. But here's the truth. The opposite happens. Standards don't make her retreat, they make her chase. Because when a man shows he has a backbone, he becomes rare. And rarity is what keeps her invested. Take Brian, 55, a retired firefighter who started dating Elaine, 50, an interior designer. At first, Brian played the nice guy card. He said yes to every plan, agreed to every change, and made himself available at her convenience. Elaine liked his kindness, but she didn't feel the spark. She described him to a friend as sweet but too easy. Then something shifted. Elaine casually cancelled dinner last minute for the 3rd time. This time Brian didn't laugh it off. He calmly said, "I value my time, Elaine. If you're not sure you want to be here, I'd rather make plans that matter to me." He didn't yell, he didn't sulk, he simply drew a line. What happened? Elaine didn't retreat. She leaned in, she called him later, apologized, and made a point to show up the following week. Why? Because Brian stopped being another pushover. He revealed standards. And that made him stand out. Here's the psychology. Standards communicate self-respect. When you enforce them calmly, without anger, you signal that your world doesn't revolve around pleasing her. That's exactly what makes her value being in it. Think of it this way. If she's the only source of your validation, she feels smothered. But if she has to earn her place in your life, she feels compelled to rise. That's when chasing begins. The mistake most men make is thinking standards equal rules. They try to control her, tell her what she can and can't do, micromanage her choices. That's not standards, that's insecurity. Standards aren't about controlling her behavior. They're about declaring what you will and won't accept in your own life. For example, Brian didn't tell Elaine what she could do. He told her what he would do if she kept cancelling. Move on. That's the power of self-respect. And notice something important here. Elaine didn't love Brian less for holding the line. She respected him more. She realized he wasn't desperate. And respect is the soil where attraction grows. Women in midlife especially crave this. They've dated men who bent over backward, who tried to buy love with availability. They're not impressed anymore. What impresses them now is strength. The ability to calmly say, "This is who I am, this is how I live. If you want to be part of it, step up." There's nothing harsher or more magnetic than quiet standards. And here's the Stoic wisdom behind it. Epictetus said, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" That question applies directly here. A man without standards waits. He waits for her to lead, for her to decide, for her to validate. A man with standards demands the best for himself, not by force, but by clarity. And that clarity is exactly what pulls her in. Elaine admitted later that Brian's line in the sand flipped her perspective. "I realized he wasn't afraid to lose me," she said, "and that made me want him more." That's the paradox men must understand. Fear of loss weakens you. Freedom from that fear strengthens you. And when she sees you can walk away, she runs toward you. So ask yourself, do you have real standards? Or are you just hoping she never tests you? Because she will. And when she does, your response will decide whether she loses interest or starts chasing. If you've ever felt how respect deepened once you enforced a boundary, drop this in the comments. I hold lines. And remember this, once she knows your standards are real, the next thing she'll feel is even more powerful. Because boundaries don't just demand respect, they ignite a different kind of desire, one tied to scarcity and exclusivity. And that's where the game truly shifts. Number 8. Boundaries fuel her respect. One of the biggest mistakes men make is confusing boundaries with control. They think telling a woman what to do is the same as being strong. But real strength doesn't control her life. Real strength controls your own. And when a woman sees a man who has clear boundaries, who honors them consistently, she doesn't pull back. She leans in with more respect. Boundaries are different from standards. Standards are what you demand from life. Boundaries are how you protect what you value. They're the invisible lines that say, "This is who I am, this is how I live, and this is what I won't compromise on." Here's what happens when you don't have them. She texts you at midnight, and even though you're exhausted, you drop everything to respond. She cancels on you 3 times in a row, and you keep rescheduling like nothing happened. She crosses lines with her words or actions, and you just laugh it off. She might enjoy the freedom at first, but deep down, she loses respect. Why? Because you've shown her you don't respect yourself enough to enforce boundaries, and if you won't protect yourself, why should she? Now, contrast that with a man who does. He doesn't respond instantly to every message because he values his rest and his time. He doesn't let constant cancellations slide because he values his effort. He doesn't tolerate disrespect, not because he's angry, but because he's clear about who he island. That man doesn't have to shout or posture. His boundaries speak for him. The Stoics lived by this principle. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Boundaries embody this truth. You can't control her behavior. You can't stop her from testing you. But you can control how you respond and where you draw the line. That self-mastery is what she feels, and it's what she respects. Women are wired to test. Not because they're malicious, but because they want to feel your frame. They want to know if you're grounded enough to hold your ground. Every time she pushes, she's not looking for permission to walk over you. She's looking for confirmation that you won't collapse. And when you don't collapse, her respect deepens. Men who fail at this often confuse compliance with love. They think saying yes to everything is generosity. But women don't fall for generosity without boundaries. They fall for generosity that is chosen, given freely, not forced. A gift has no meaning if it can't be withheld. The same is true for your time, your energy, your presence. Think about it this way. A boundary is not a wall. It's a filter. It doesn't shut her out. It lets in what aligns with your life and filters out what doesn't. When she sees that, she doesn't feel controlled. She feels secure. She knows the man in front of her won't bend just to keep her. And that's exactly why she wants to stay. If you've ever noticed how standing firm earned you more respect than giving in, drop this in the comments. I hold firm. And here's the deeper layer. Once she feels your boundaries, she doesn't just respect you, she begins to value your scarcity. She realizes your attention isn't infinite, your commitment isn't automatic. And that scarcity doesn't push her away. It makes her want to earn what you give. That's where attraction transforms into loyalty. Number 9. Scarcity makes you unforgettable. Here's a secret that separates men-women. Remember from the men they forget. Scarcity. When you make yourself too available, when you give all your time and attention without pause, you lose value in her eyes. But when you create healthy scarcity, not by ignoring her, not by disappearing, but by showing that your life is full and your time is precious, you become unforgettable. Let's look at Tom, 58, a successful architect. After his divorce, he started dating Kelly, 51, who worked in publishing. Tom wanted to show interest, so he texted Kelly every morning, called her every evening, and constantly made himself available whenever she suggested plans. At first, Kelly enjoyed the attention, but quickly, she started to feel smothered. "It's like he didn't have his own life," she told a friend. It was sweet, but also overwhelming. Now contrast that with another moment. After a few weeks, Tom decided to pull back, not in a manipulative way, but in a grounded way. He focused on his career, went back to golfing with friends, and didn't rearrange his schedule every time Kelly asked. What happened? Kelly leaned in. She texted first. She asked when she could see him. She admitted, "I was thinking about you all week." Scarcity didn't push her away, it pulled her closer. Why? Because human psychology values what feels rare. If you can have something whenever you want, it stops being special. But if you have to wait, if you have to earn it, its value multiplies. Women feel this deeply. When your attention is constant, it fades into background noise. When your attention is scarce, every bit of it feels like gold. The key is balance. Scarcity doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means showing her that your life doesn't stop when she's not around. It means proving you have purpose, passions, and priorities that matter to you. And when you let her in, she feels chosen. That choice carries weight. Women in midlife especially crave this. They've dealt with men who suffocated them, who thought love meant giving up their own lives. They don't want that. They want a man who can stand on his own 2 feet. A man whose presence feels like a privilege, not a guarantee. The Stoics spoke to this idea in their reflections on time. Seneca said, "Nothing is ours except time." When you treat your time as sacred, you communicate that truth. And when she realizes your time isn't endless, she values it more. Scarcity isn't a trick, it's reality. You only have so much to give. When you honor that, she respects it, and she desires it more. Tom later realized that what made Kelly obsessed wasn't how much attention he gave her, it was how meaningful his attention felt when he gave it. That's the paradox men overlook. Constant presence breeds indifference. Limited presence breeds intensity. So here's the real question. Are you flooding her with availability, or are you making your presence valuable? The answer will determine whether you fade from memory or stay unforgettable. If you've ever seen how stepping back made her step forward, drop this in the comments. I create value. And remember, scarcity doesn't make her lose interest. It makes her realize that your presence is worth chasing. And once she feels that, she won't forget you. Number 10. Exclusive commitment becomes her reward. Here's the paradox most men never see. Commitment doesn't lose its value when you give it. It loses its value when you give it too soon. A woman doesn't chase commitment because she's afraid of being alone. She chases commitment because it feels earned. And when it's earned, it feels like the highest reward you can offer. Think about what happens when a man rushes into exclusivity. He's barely known her, but he's already rearranging his life, shutting off options, begging her to be the one. To her, it doesn't feel romantic. It feels desperate. She thinks, if it's this easy to win his whole world, how much is it really worth? Now imagine a different man. He has standards. He has boundaries. He has scarcity built into his life. He doesn't hand over his full attention to just anyone. But over time, as she shows up, as she proves her loyalty, as she invests her heart, he begins to lean in, slowly, intentionally, until one day he says, "I choose you, and only you." That moment lands like thunder, not because the words are dramatic, but because she knows they weren't automatic. She earned them. That's why exclusive commitment, given at the right time, becomes her greatest reward. It's not about control. It's not about keeping her. It's about showing her that your loyalty is rare, valuable, and not given lightly. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." In your relationships, being that man means you don't give away exclusivity cheaply. You hold it with dignity. And when you finally share it, it carries the weight of your integrity. This is what transforms desire into devotion. She doesn't just want you in the moment. She wants you in the long run, because she knows she's received something most women never will. And that, more than anything, makes you unforgettable. So ask yourself, are you rushing to give away what should be earned? Or are you holding commitment like the reward it truly is? The answer determines whether your presence becomes temporary comfort or a lasting mark on her soul. So now you see it. Women aren't just responding to your words, your looks, or your money. They're responding to psychology, to presence, to the quiet strength of a man who lives by standards, enforces boundaries, and doesn't give himself away cheaply. Every part we've covered in this video comes down to one thing: self-mastery. When you live with discipline, when you carry calm, when you let desire flow instead of forcing it, you become the kind of man she can't forget. Not because you begged, not because you chased, but because you led. And that's the real message here. Attraction isn't about tricks. It's about being the man who embodies depth, scarcity, and strength, while still knowing when to show his humanity. Do that, and you don't just spark her interest, you keep it. If you want to go deeper and access lessons I don't share publicly, become a member today. Inside the membership, you'll get exclusive Stoic insights, advanced psychology breakdowns, and step-by-step strategies to master your presence with women and in life. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss tomorrow's video. Every day we drop something new to sharpen your mindset, your confidence, and your relationships. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you tomorrow.